Hey, good morning, all. Welcome back to the Common Good podcast. I'm saying welcome back to us, Rob. We feels like we've been off for a couple of weeks, so it's good to be back. You know, we had that
Absolutely.
big long 12-hour Common Good-a-thon, and it's good to be back in the regular flow. It is a Tuesday, July 19th, the middle of the beauty of the weather of Minnesota. I'll tell you, Minnesota can compete with just about anywhere in July. It's if you like warm, soothing, comfortable weather. Sometimes it gets a little humid. Today might be a little hot, but you know, especially if you like me, you like hot. Really good. How's it feeling there in Arkansas on July 19th?
What do you classify as hot there in Minnesota?
94 and up. 93
Okay.
it can live with, comfortable. 94 it becomes hot. 100 of course, which we get to a lot. Just really difficult because it gets humid when it gets that hot here.
Yeah, here too. We are scheduled for weather of over 100 all week. You know, I think the forecast for today, a high of 105. So that's not going to be a lot of fun. But you know, you stay indoors and you don't go out in it too much, and you'll be all right. So yeah, it's
That's great.
fine.
You just stay inside. You'll be fine. Everybody will be okay.
Yeah.
Yep, that's how we feel about, of course, the wintertime. All right. Well, things are also heating up, Rob, and getting humid around the political world, of course. There hasn't been a Tuesday, it feels like, since I don't know, mid-year 2016, when evangelicals converted to supporting Donald Trump in that fateful summer. That it has not felt like the future of democracy is on the line on every given Tuesday. And I'll tell you what, Rob, my view is Donald Trump is as big of a problem now as ever. So I know there's a lot of people who, you know, there's this phrase called Trump obsessive syndrome or something, which I would probably, you know, qualify for if there was some sort of political psychological evaluation. But just because, you know, you're crazy doesn't mean you're not right sometimes. And he may have driven me over the edge, but I still think he's a bigger problem because I think his candidacy in 2024 will be, if he decides to run, more threatening to democracy than 2016 and 2020 because of what is everything else on the ballot around Trump. What he brings to the office, people could have said, yeah, come on, it's not going to be like that, right? Like you had to say to yourself, if he becomes president, he could act like such and such. And then he did, but you couldn't guarantee it. 2020, he's saying a second term of this guy after all that he's done. Who knows what's good. Now, after January 6th insurrection and the plotting and scheming that he put together from election day to January 6th to try to overthrow the election results, then if the man becomes president, it's just it is worse than we've ever stared at before.
Yeah, throughout his presidency, there was always that sense of the political norms, just like the normal procedures and just kind of like how stuff is done, the expectations for that, you know, were consistently being violated. And there was that sense of like, there was kind of this disconcerting sense of, oh, well, maybe he just doesn't know, or he's not a political animal. And so there was always that sense of, well, he might, violate some, normal procedure that we have as Americans, for instance, the peaceful transfer of power. But you kind of you give him a break. I think
he's
now
just unorthodox. He's just a little clumsy and unorthodox. Not a typical politician.
All the pretext is gone.
That's right.
It is okay. No, this guy is in it for himself, and he is actually an existential threat to democracy, or as you like to say, Doug, the planet and all who live on it. And so I think you're absolutely right. Now, as I jumped on Twitter this morning to see what was trending, to see if there was anything good for us to talk about today,
So
which
sorry for
I
you.
know I know you didn't do, Doug, because you deleted your Twitter account as a birthday present to yourself.
I broke free. I broke free.
Yeah, you know, trending this morning was Nikki Haley, who apparently was spending some time criticizing Donald Trump last night.
Good.
Um, well, come on. No, I'm like, it's just so ridiculous. These folks who worked for him, who were a part of his administration, who now have to differentiate themselves from him, this self differentiation that they're going through, it is, it's about as awkward and as difficult as watching
Mhm.
a teenager try to assert their self-control, their self, for the first time. It's just, come on. So you have Nikki Haley doing this, you have Mike Pence doing this, you have Mike Pompeo doing it. You've got like all these people, Chris Christie, all these people that think they're going to be president. Number one, none of you are going to be president.
Okay.
And
It's
two,
just that clear? It's just Chris Christie
I
doesn't have a chance? Is that true? Because
yeah,
please
I
tell me that's
think yeah, that's true. I think Nikki Haley could have a chance, but
mm,
I don't know. Um, but they just come off as so disingenuous. Like, listen, you were the United Nations ambassador under Donald Trump, and you tolerated so much, and now you want to like take some kind of moral high ground. It's just
yeah.
ridiculous and infuriating. And for all of these people that are getting into this race, that will get into this race, and by the way, it is entirely too long. Uh, I'm, Doug, I think you had mentioned previously about how you're not a fan of the parliamentary system. I'm
Yeah.
totally with you on that. However, the upside is, hey, we're going to declare an election. It's in 6 weeks, and you got 6 weeks. You don't have years and years and years of this. So, anyways, as we head into the next 2 years plus, because I think there's going to be presidential announcements before the midterms, including Donald Trump, as I've predicted. Um, the challenge on the Republican side is, while Trump does not have the level of support he had previously, his support is more unified and more rabid than any others. And so once you
Sure.
get into a multi-person primary that's not a, one-on-one kind of
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
all you got to do is win the most votes, and his folks aren't going anywhere. If it's 50%,
For the Republican primary, he's just got a
in the
built-in base, but
Republican,
the others,
yes.
yeah, the others will
Yeah,
divide.
exactly. That
Yeah.
I think make him the presumptive nominee for the Republican Party, which is just once again terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a shock if that were to happen again. If Republicans somehow were forced to have this man be their candidate again on the general ballot, that I think the level of strain that would put on the Republican system will be intense. Like, it was bad in 2016.
Yeah.
But a lot of those guys in 2016 just thought it was a throwaway election anyway. It was a bit like Bill Clinton running in 1992. I don't know if you remember, but in 1992, because George H.W. Bush,
Yep.
because of the Gulf War
Yep.
episode, had like a
Yes.
90% approval rating because of
90,
Operation Desert
92.
Storm.
Yep.
And all of the other Democratic candidates decided not to run that year. And when
Yep.
Clinton got in, it was because it wasn't a great
Yep.
race,
Yep.
and sort of ran away with it. Well, this is something that and then because Ross Perot was in, this is something that the Republicans
Yeah.
are not going to let happen again. They're not going to look, and I'm no Republican fan. I think these people need to sit on the political bench for a decade, right?
And think about what they've done.
Think about what they've done. And if you're having trouble, we could show you some video.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be facing a level of anti-Trump organization that's not just like a couple guys from the Lincoln Project, that were banking out of the Republican Party anyway, or just saw themselves as some sort of dark knight heroes. I think it's going to be something much more sophisticated, and I bet people like Liz Cheney and others are going to get into that race also very soon. I bet they're going to start announcing, whether Trump announces this summer or he waits until the fall or early winter to formally announce. Which for Trump, the difference between formally announcing and not is very, very minute. Normally, for people when they formally announce versus just saying out loud, "Hey, I'm going to run for president," it has to do with how they're fundraising and what the money's going to be used for. The reason Trump doesn't have that problem is that the Republican Party in 17 handed over the database and the fundraising operation from the RNC to Trump Inc. They gave it to the Trump campaign, which is really his private business. So by giving it to the Trumps of the world, that's why all the other Republicans are having to not violate Trump. It's not just because he's going to tweet about him. It's because they control the database and they control the money. That was the RNC's. What the RNC is supposed to do is create an infrastructure. They gave that to Trump. The clown show of these people. So it's going to be very difficult for people to run against him. But I think they're going to. I think there's going to be a huge amount of pushback.
Can I just throw a little footnote into your comment for, you mentioned the 92 election and George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Ross Perot. I'm currently reading one of my favorite authors, a guy named Chuck Klosterman. And he's got a new book out called The 90s, which is fantastic. And I just a couple of days ago read the chapter about the 92 election and Ross Perot. And it is fascinating and highly recommended. So just a little footnote there that if you're looking for something to read, you can get it at the library. That's where I got my copy. The 90s by Chuck Klosterman.
Libraries, the Napster of books.
Yeah.
Just distributing copyrighted material without payment to the author. Hey, do you think that something like a Ross Perot is an option, though, that put together a full-on alternative, not just Evan McMullin kind of pulling his stuff together in the summer of 2016, but a well-articulated, well-crafted, we will keep Donald Trump from becoming president by hiving off 20% of Republicans who are going to vote in the general election in certain states for president for someone other than Trump if he becomes the nominee. I think that's a real possibility. I think there's a burn it down approach, because I believe that there's a lot of Republicans who say what we've all been hearing from the January 6th Commission saying, which is this man can be nowhere near the White House again.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense for the party to elect a one-term president. What party wants to? I mean, that doesn't even make sense for them. Their future is not with Donald Trump. So I just think there's a chance that you could have a real realignment, and that could end up having a generational level of consequence to it.
Yeah, that's an interesting notion. I'll have to noodle on that a bit and think about who that person could be. I mean, there would have to be some level of sophistication, some self-funding. I know that Jeff Bezos has flirted with things. I don't know. That
Bloomberg. There's some billionaires out there that are like, oh,
well,
totally. I could run a campaign in 25 presidential campaign that focuses on 25 states, really, seriously. And
I'm not sure Mike Bloomberg's the best example, given what he was not able to do in 2020. But yeah,
look, I understand, but here's what I'm getting at. The difference between running for the nomination and saying I want to be the Republican nominee, and therefore I'm going to abide by that, and I'm going to work the system, and then whatever happens in the primaries. I'm saying somebody who forms a party or runs under the banner of an independence party or a libertarian party or some, one of the throwaway offshoot parties that
Yep.
exist. If that's not already happening, I sure hope some people are getting their act together and getting those parties organized and formalized in states so that they can be on ballots and so on, because that really could be the future. And I think this Thursday night, as someone who has thought Donald Trump's personal and political demise is not around the corner, it was yesterday.
It's imminent. It's like the rapture. It could happen any moment.
I do think that this Thursday is when they bring the loop together and say, here's what Donald Trump did not do on that day. And they contrast it with what was being done by Mike Pence and then what was not being actualized on January 6th. Dereliction of duty. Like, you can say a lot about Donald Trump that Republicans can let go of. Dereliction of duty when it comes to protecting the United States of America is not one of those. If they can move 5, 10, 15% of Republicans to believe that Donald Trump did not fulfill that base commitment on that day, I think that's a real game changer. But you're convinced that he's gonna run anyway. I'm still not convinced. I think he will, but I also think he could get right up to the point where he's flirting with running and talking about it, and then decides not to. That he reads the writing on the wall and says, "This actually doesn't make sense. I will lose, and if I lose, then." But hey, look, I just put up a video yesterday of it was a YouTube video with a little snarky kind of clickbait cover. That was, I finally now see the evidence that Donald Trump has been talking about from, of a rigged election. It's now clear to me. And the evidence is that Joe Biden won, right? So I sort of go through this little 5-minute video, totally worth four minutes of your time to watch this 5-minute video. He not only said these very, like, truly the same words in 2020, for much of 2020, that he said in 2016, both about Hillary Clinton and about Ted Cruz in Iowa, and what he wrote about Barack Obama's win over Mitt Romney, what he tweeted in November of 2012. Rob, I was shocked to read and then hear myself reading his tweets saying the words. They are the exact phrases that he used at the Ellipse and that he was using during this campaign, from travesty and rigged election and the loser won, but he did spell one W-O-N-E instead of W-O-N. So it was a very confusing tweet when he said the loser won. I actually recorded 2 different versions of it because I couldn't fit. And I was like, I think he meant W-O-N. All that to say, he has just consistently been saying those same things. I mean, the practice lines are incredible. What he had, everything short of stop the steal. It's all like fight like hell. All of it. It's all there, right? So this guy's, capacity to fear losing is enormous, and I think that's. But we'll see if Thursday actually moves some more people. I saw some polling over the weekend. Maybe you saw it too in some reports, like in Wyoming and Wisconsin, that self-identified independents who just happen to always vote for Republicans, that crowd, like, I'm not a Republican. Just turns out that's the only people I ever vote for.
Yep.
Those people are moving away from Trump in those important states. And that is exactly the thing that he does not want to happen. So maybe by announcing a run, he will, but I think he's still testing the waters here. Because what the man says to anyone is not what he's necessarily going to do. I think he's.
Yep. Yeah. And he is, as everyone says, he's a master marketer. And so teasing a run, teasing a decision, teasing an announcement, like he gets all of that. He gets the power of all of that, whether he does it or not. And I think he will. But even if he decides not to, he understands the power, the fundraising power. Because listen, there are rules about, like, this money that he raises, what he's allowed to do and not do with it. Those rules aren't going to be enough to stop him from doing whatever he wants with the money. So,
you think campaign
and
finance violations is what he's really afraid of? Yeah, that's right.
yeah, the federal, and as feckless as the Federal Election Commission is, like, come on, this is a toothless organization that is just it's a sham. But I want to say this: January 6th Commission has been, my favorite television show of the year. Totally deserves an Emmy. Because we happen to be friends with someone who is nominated for an Emmy, I sent a little congratulatory message to a friend of ours who is nominated for an Emmy, Danny Strong, for writing for Dope Sick. And then I thought, next year, I hope I'm sending an email to Liz Cheney saying congratulations, or Benny Thompson saying congratulations on your Emmy nomination, because the January 6th Commission has been fascinating television. It has been really amazing to watch. It has been, and so this is the last episode, and the season's going to be over. And there's this sense of like, is this going to be renewed or not? Are we going to get season 2, or are we going to get any bonus episodes? But the finale Thursday is in primetime. You remember the premiere was in primetime, Doug, and you remember what the viewing audience was? It was 20 million people tuned in. More people than watch, major sporting events. More people than watch, an NFL game on a Sunday. Like, it was a gigantic. Now I know.
Stuff, yeah.
I know. You can say, well, we're a country of 360 million people. Why only 20 million tuning in? Listen, 20 million people tuning into anything is a big deal. It's a lot. 20 million people tuned in. I think the finale is going to do better than that, because the January 6th Commission has shown that they have the goods. I think there's a lot of, like, this has not been boring procedural stuff. It has been understandable, cookies on the bottom shelf. Yeah. Like, anybody watching, regardless of your level of engagement, can have a sense of what's going on. They've done an amazing job, and I think they are set to blow the doors off on Thursday. I hope my expectations are not too high. The one thing I am following, Doug, have you been following the story about the deleted Secret Service texts?
Yeah, I have.
They're part of one of the things that we've learned through the commission hearings is that Donald Trump on January 6th wanted to have his security detail take him to the Capitol, because he wasn't going to walk. Come on, let's be honest. He wasn't going to walk.
Well, not only because
a couple of miles, right?
He's a golf cart golfer, but also even the man's level of confidence that the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers that were armed with weapons in Washington, D.C. weren't there to hurt him. The president of the United States probably shouldn't be walking the mall in the middle of a crowd, right? Like, there's a safety level there.
I mean, maybe he could.
Maybe that was the one good decision the man made that day, was maybe just for the sake of the presidency, I shouldn't be out in the middle of the mall.
You know what he should have done?
Like a rock star, body surfing along the mall up to the Capitol.
No, he should have grabbed, pulled his phone out, downloaded the app, and got one of those rental scooters, and just, zipping his way from the White House.
Trump on a Lime scooter. Awesome. It's awesome. But he would have used one of his.
I have tickled myself. The image of Donald Trump on a Lime scooter on his way to the Capitol, with like the hordes of Proud Boys like running behind him, trying to keep up.
And truthfully, if you've watched the hearing, they know that's exactly what Trump wanted, to come in there like that, but walking with a whole crowd of a private militia behind. Like, had he done that, maybe Mitch McConnell would have stayed, opposed to him. Maybe, right?
Maybe.
Had the executive branch with Donald Trump at the front brought a bunch of hooligans into the Capitol building and demanded that he have access and stand there while Mike Pence doesn't, wants him to not count the electoral college votes. That would have been, I mean, as riveting as what happened was, can you imagine had people not actually stopped Donald Trump from going? Can you just, like, that's one of those shows they should make about alternative paths. Like, what if this had happened? Because that's what they had plotted. That's what they were planning to do. Or at least he wanted to be outside the building at that other stage that they're getting at. But anyway, you were finishing another thought that he didn't want to walk.
Yeah, so he wanted to have the Secret Service take him to the Capitol building. Cassie Hutchinson testified that he physically attempted to take the steering wheel of the presidential limo that he was in, the Beast, as they call it.
Actually, he wasn't in the Beast. I just
for people who fight this, wasn't the Beast.
No, the Beast is the big limo, and he's in the back, and there's a partition. He was in that SUV. That's why in the hearing they showed the Caravan go by, and it was the little SUV. So he was just in the back of like an expedition. That's because people immediately jumped on it and they said it's not possible. The Beast, it's like you can't reach in. It's separated. And then they're like, "Yeah, you knucklehead." That's why they showed the thing. I'm not saying you're knucklehead. That's what people were saying on the on the internet.
No, I'm a knucklehead.
Knucklehead. But anyway, he was in a secured vehicle.
Yes, in the vehicle he was in, he attempted to hijack the vehicle, and he was stopped by a Secret Service agent. He was also allegedly grabbed that Secret Service agent by the clavicles, and which remains one of my favorite parts of the January 6th hearing. Someday we're going to look back. And we're going to talk about some of the highlights, and clavicles is going to be one of them. And for those of you that haven't watched, you don't get the little inside joke. You got to watch the show to get the jokes.
And we'll be bringing it to you live, right? Wherever you're watching us.
Is that story confirmed by Secret Service agents via texting one another? You'll never believe what happened. Or would those texts from Secret Service agents confirm that there was a plan to remove Mike Pence from the Capitol building so that he could not certify the election? Get into the car. I'm not getting into this car, as Mike Pence said, and he refused. He stayed at the Capitol building so he could do his job, because they might still be driving Mike Pence around right now, like if he had gotten into the car. Is there evidence that was the plan? Is there any evidence that Secret Service members were willing to aid and abet Donald Trump in stopping the steal or stealing the election, or like, were they what? And listen, I know we want to think, the Secret Service, like, these are good and honorable men, they would take a bullet, and we think the West Wing and the close relationships that President Bartlett had with that Secret Service, we've got these kind of Hollywood ideas about the Secret Service.
You don't buy it?
No. Do you remember the Secret Service prostitute scandal from a few years ago?
Totally. It's these agency out of control. Yeah, has been for a long time.
And so what? And listen, Doug, you can't delete texts. You can delete them from view.
Totally. I mean, that's the thing about this whole scandal.
This
so what happened?
Stuff is not going away. So I'm dying to know. Will the January 6th Commission continue with what their original plan was, to show the dereliction of duty of Donald Trump on January 6th, or he didn't do anything because it seemed like that was where everything was going? Or does this new emergence of the January 6th Secret Service text being deleted, does that necessitate a little change of direction and an extending of the series by an episode? I mean, what do you have a sense about that? Is it going to just simply be incorporated in? Because this seems to me like it is an absolute bombshell.
Yeah, look, if it turns out that the texts that were deleted from the phones has information on them that's pertinent, then you've got a scandal. If it's simply regular communication on those phones and there's nothing there, because as you say, that they're using phones like the rest of us. The Secret Service is the phone might be, encrypted, but it's using a messaging system. So it's either using Android or iMessage or something. So that's where they are. They're on a server. Those things exist. They're not gone, right? Things are just not, unless they're using private encrypted apps, which I'm sure that the Secret Service is not using in a way that the Secret Service can't get to them. What happened, though, so people know who aren't following this story, is that the Inspector General asked for the Secret Service to keep all of their communications related to January 6th and so on. The Secret Service, turns out, was swapping out phones, getting rid of some and wiping
Allegedly.
them. And one side of the Secret Service agency kept moving on that process when the other side that got the data about preserve this didn't communicate this to the other people, and they wiped a bunch of phones, right? That's what that's what both the Inspector General and the Secret Service say. Now, someone should lose their job because they should have communicated that. If that turns out to be something more than a typical process of clearing, devices, because there's thousands of people in the Secret Service. So there's, somebody's running IT over there. It's just running, doing all the stuff you do at a big organization. If it turns out not to just be that, again, the Secret Service is incompetent and the Secret Service is run by a bunch of lackeys and Trump put his own people in charge and they run a poor organization, which has been the complaint from Secret Service agents for a long time. If it's not that and it's something more pointed, then that should probably take on some congressional hearing that's totally unrelated to the January 6th special committee, right? So the committee had better refer this to something else, some other investigation, if that's the case. I hope that they stay the course and don't get, attracted to these other stories, because people are not going to care about the fact that the Inspector General told the Secret Service to do something and that an interagency fight has broken out about who has jurisdiction over this and that. Like, that is not, well, the minute you say the Inspector General, people are like, oh my gosh, what is happening? They just want to know, did Donald Trump sit in the Oval Office when he's being told to call in the National Guard or to call in the Defense Department and said, no, I won't do it? That's what they want. And if it's not, if that's on the table and they start talking about this other stuff, good golly, that'll be. And I still feel like they canceled a Thursday hearing 3 weeks ago. I don't think it was ever replaced. I can't figure out in the calendar.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they didn't cancel it. They just delayed. Everything has been late. They were supposed to be done by now, according to the original schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, right. And they added a hearing with Cassidy Hutchinson. That's
what I mean. So they had the regular number. They had the set 6 or whatever. They've done 5. This is 6, but they added the one with Cassidy Hutchinson, but they canceled one. That's what I'm getting at. So which one was canceled? Because they added one. It's like that. It's like that trick with the you got change for 20 when the guy comes up to you on the street and does the thing, and somehow you ended up giving him $40, which is still one of the great swindles that I love, and leave the man with the $40. I feel like that's happened in here somewhere. I could be wrong, but it's not quite. So I think there's some information they haven't that they pivoted away from. My point being, they are willing to do that. These guys. All right. So Trump is a real problem. We have to stop him. Yeah. Coming good. We'll be here. We will do our part. Yeah.
Breaking news: Donald Trump is a real problem.
And we're still on the case. One last thing I want to get to our final minutes before we talk, if we have time to talk about that, there's only 20 counties in America that determine the future of the Congress, of the federal government, which is kind of shocking for all, there's 50 states and thousands of counties, and there's 20 that matter. The fist bump, Rob. The fist bump. Now, look, I have been a Biden supporter. I liked Joe Biden when he tried to run in 88. I liked Joe Biden when he tried to run in 96. I liked Joe Biden when he was a vice president. I voted for Joe Biden and wanted him to be elected. I don't think he should run again, just simply because the man has done his time on this earth. It's time for him to, take it easy. And he's not. 6 years from now, he still shouldn't be having to be the president of the United States. But that fist bump with MSB of Saudi Arabia, that wasn't quite Trump standing next to Putin and saying, I know my secret, I know my my people told me that Russia interfered in the election, but Putin told me he didn't. So, why would he? It's not that bad.
Yeah.
But to publicly choreograph a fun greeting, a little fist bump, not only with MSB, who oversaw the execution and murder of Washington Post journalist, in order to cover up his own crimes, and all the other things that they're doing in Saudi Arabia. But he also fist bumped the other guys. Like, look, I get it. I don't want to hear, again, some pundit saying the president of the United States isn't on a playground. The president of the United States has to work with everybody. This isn't about picking friends. You have to work with bad people. Yeah, you work with bad people, but they're not your golf buddy. You don't have to fist bump them like they made a putt. Like that little thing in our culture, that's a sign of affirmation. That's a sign of affection. That's a sign of playful greeting. The president could walk up, stone-faced, look the man in the face and say, I'm the president. You're the prince, soon to be king of Saudi Arabia. Maybe is the king. Let's get down to business. Shuffling up and smiling and fist bumping. That is like whatever went on in the background of the White House conversation about how they're going to choreograph, because that was not an accident. Bothers me. And I think will bother me until, I forget that it happened. And then when I remember, it'll bother me again. I don't think it's going to stop bothering me if I can keep remembering that it happened. Do you have a thought on it? You don't seem bothered by it at all.
No,
you seem like the kind of guy that just wants to fist bump murderers, Rob. I don't understand why.
No, I really don't. I mean, I completely agree with you that the optics are ridiculous, that even a handshake, even a handshake you can play off as, well, that's just a normal professional greeting. Yes. A fist bump has a level of familiarity to it that that is troublesome with a murderous dictator like the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And
great phrase, too, Crown Prince.
I know, seriously, I love it. This has been a whole podcast of great phrases because I love the phrase dereliction of duty as well.
What if there was a dereliction of duty by the Crown Prince? That would just really
well. So I think I don't know. This feels like yes, the short-term optics are rough. This is one of those political things that gets seized on by people to make political points that they already believe and they already think. And I don't know.
Fair enough.
Yes,
it's
unfortunate.
I've spent a lot of time complaining about Donald Trump cozying up to Kim Jong-un, cozying up to Putin, cozying up to Syria, and it's really a problem. And then to watch Joe Biden go to Saudi Arabia and to be familial level of brother-in-law fist bumping as first of all, quit the fist bumping as the president of the United States. Like when anybody does that in their job, unless your job is to be like, I don't know,
it's
an entertainer,
quit with the cheeky and weird.
Yeah. Like honestly, that stuff, like it was cute when Tiger Woods did it to his caddy in 1998. It's not cute when the president of the United States does it to a murderous crown prince. So,
but I think, Doug, I think there's this sense of like, we want Joe Biden to be different. We want Joe Biden to be, antithetical to Donald Trump or antithetical to the things that make us uncomfortable. I think we've got to face the reality that Joe Biden is a political animal through and through. He is an insider of the insiders. And listen, I Cards on the table. As I've said, I don't think I've ever said on this podcast, I never imagined I would work so hard to get someone elected president who I barely want to be president. I am not,
Yeah, well,
I am
what was that? What
not
was the last president, formal candidate that you're like, I'm thrilled about that one? So it's just not a thing we
but
get to do. Yeah, I hear you.
I think
But
that,
I'm not
listen,
talking about personal or policy or anything. It's just function in the office. It just, I don't
I
know. It's
know, but like that, but
terrible
why would it surprise you that
because it
that
is
a political
because it's
insider in
bad politics. That's the thing that surprises me
well, Joe
about it.
Biden is not good at politics.
Well, then I don't know what you're saying. If you're saying that it doesn't surprise me because it's just what political animals do, but he's bad at it. Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
Then that's what bugs
no,
me. Like
like
Joe Biden,
yes,
look, you can say a lot about Joe Biden. The man is good at politics. Look, he has been a professional politician, successful as a politician. He's never lost an election, all this kind of stuff. Like by every measure, the guy has accomplished what he wants in his job since he was 28 years old of being a representative of the people of the United States of America, other than the couple of years after being vice president when he, wasn't in office. I don't think Joe Biden's like he's clumsy, he's bad at politics. What I don't understand from the White House perspective is why they would choose, because they chose to do this.
right.
I'd heard more than a week ago, I heard a report, and I was a little stunned by what the reporter said. The reporter said there was a lot of attention being, and obviously this is total insider stuff, like this is sports level of ESPN
Oh yeah,
conversation, about
oh
what's happening within the organization of the football team.
yeah. We're going inside the NFL here.
But there was a reporter, I think on NPR, who I heard say one of the questions the White House is dealing with is what are going to be the optics when Joe Biden meets the Crown Prince? Are they going to do that out in public? Is it going to be inside? Like all that's choreographed, right? So they were talking about it. And what he said was, is he going to bow? Is he going to handshake? Or is he going to fist bump? These are the questions that the White House is struggling with. And I was like, there's no question here to me, right? It's a handshake. Yeah. That's it. You don't bow. Presidents, no. It doesn't work well in the United States. When Obama did it or when Trump did it, it does. I get it that it's customary, but with Saudi Arabia, it's just, so he's not bowing. I'm sure of that. Of course, he's not going to fist bump. They're not golf buddies. So what did he do? Fist bumped. That tells me that these were leaked conversations of the orchestration of that. And then I heard a report after this was done where the person who's the political expert in Saudi Arabia said the Saudis really wanted that. They asked for it. They wanted it because they had been so marginalized and so worried that what Biden said as a candidate, which is we want to turn, MSB and the Saudi, that's Crown Prince and Saudi Arabia into the pariahs that they are internationally, that they wanted some concessions from the president to see them as more legitimate before they were going to open up more oil. Now, if what Biden is having to say, what he had to deal with was basically, look, it became a negotiating chip. And if you didn't negotiate for a kind of friendly greeting that said, we're in on this together, because they know what the fist bump means. Like, this is where it's like when Melania wore the jacket.
We're talking about this.
These people are this stuff.
Fist bump gate. I cannot wait for it is like that 70s show became that 80s show, and it was a terrible spinoff, or Joni Loves Chachi was a terrible spinoff. Like the fist bump commission hearings are going to be a terrible spinoff of the January 6th commission hearings. Fist bump gate. We're going into detail on what happened.
Yeah, but this is what I'm getting at. See, because what the president does, as we've talked about here a lot, is they have two roles. One of them is they're the executive of the executive branch, and they have to perform the executive functions. The other is they're the representative of the United States of America. And we actually give more credence to that. So when Trump behaves in a way like says, punch him in the face, or says it's my generals, or his wife wears a jacket that says, I don't care, do you? Or he says about Putin, why wouldn't I believe him? Or he hugs Kim Jong-un, or he throws paper towels to the people in Puerto Rico in the middle of a crisis.
Yes.
Those things matter. And this White House of Biden choreographs everything. This was planned, and why they would do this. And then when Biden got home 2 nights ago, a reporter shouted, "Do you regret the fist bump?" Right? So this is off the plane, first question. And what does he say? Why don't you ask me something important? Okay? Why don't you ask me something important and then I'll answer it? You know what I'd love to know? Was it important enough for there to be any communication among staff about how you were going to greet the Crown Prince? Because if you thought it was important enough to choreograph that, and then you don't think it's important enough for someone to ask, why did you do it? But it was important enough for you to put it together. This is the kind of thing that I think really, really matters. The presidency of the United States is inhabited by an individual. And for the president to do that with those guys, and then not to come out and say, look, it's really complicated. We're negotiating about oil limits and oil increase, and we want oil prices to go down in the United States. That's all part of the negotiation. Then go ahead and tell us that, right? Because if they're such, like we're big operators, we know what's going on. Look, we've promised we're going to be hard on Trump when he's a buffoon, and we're going to be hard on Biden when he does stuff like this. I don't feel like there's been that many times when Biden has failed as in his role as president. I think he's been pretty good in his public affect role. I think, being able to move the Democratic caucus the way that he wants to, he's misjudged that and has blundered it and overstepped. And I think they haven't been very effectual on some policy things that really matter to people. And it's going to cost him deeply. But I think generally speaking, as the person functioning as a president, he's been pretty good. This, I think, is terrible.
Wow. I am.
You clearly do not.
No, I am.
Terrible.
I'm here
you
for
think
it. I am in to talk about the fist bump for as long as we need to. It's
terrible. It's terrible.
And again, if Steve Bannon trial,
I just heard that it started, and what I heard that they were starting. This is before yesterday when it started. Was that it was the beginning of jury selection?
Yeah.
So was there any news that came out of that, or was it just?
I think there
business
the
of
jury.
The court?
No news yet. Just that it's moving along.
Because he's going to plead before this thing goes to trial, is my guess. Now, whether or not they impanel a jury, get all the way through that process before they work out a deal, because he is not. When the judge, did you hear last week? When Bannon asked for them to have a change of rules, delay, or include some information.
His entire case was thrown out by the judge. Basically, every defense that he has was inadmissible.
And the attorney for Bannon said, "Why even have a trial then if we can't provide these defenses?" And the judge said, "That's a very good question. You should consider that with your client. Why have a trial? Like, you're guilty, and the things you've said you want to offer as a defense, you don't get to offer as a defense." So, because it's not in question whether he didn't appear for the subpoena. It's not that kind of trial.
Yes,
it's
exactly
what he did do, which he says he did do, which is to not show up for the subpoena and not show up for the hearing that he had a subpoena for. So clearly did it. That's not in question. It's just, did he have a reason? Was it legitimate? And he was told the reasons you're going to offer, you can't offer. So that's it. It's settled. So he's going to lose. So does Bannon, does Bannon want to be able to say, the government forced me into a bad deal, and we all know what that's like when the government moves against you, and I just had to do the best I could, right? Which is what he did the first time. Or when he was convicted. Or does he say, a jury of my peers convicted me? That's worse. So I'm
Yeah, it is worse.
Confident that this guy is going to say, he's going to plead it out and then say, oh, what else was I going to do? Throw himself on the mercy of when the federal government comes again, because that's their great line. This is what Mike Flynn used, this is what Roger Stone used, this is what Steve Bannon used, was to say to their people who follow them, the federal government has way too much power and they can just make you do things that you don't want to do. They'll make you confess to things you didn't do. That's their line. That's Mike Flynn's line. Like, I didn't do any of those things. It's just they created a set of conditions where there's nothing else I could do. You throw a jury in there and that gets a little more difficult, right? A jury found you guilty. Like, so my guess is that Steve Bannon is going to go to jail. The guy's going to go to jail. I mean, again, the number of people around Trump that are criminals is just incredible.
It's true.
And does any of that compare to a fist bump? I got to say, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it does. Is any of it worse than a fist bump? Don't bump the crown prince. Is that trending on Elon Musk's social network yet? Hey, what's happening with that? By the way, I got to go here in a second. But what's happening with that? Is Musk
Twitter
buying it?
No, Twitter is he's pulled out. He's trying to pull out of the deal, and Twitter is suing him to force him to buy them.
So what do you think is going to happen? Is he going to buy him? He's just going to pay him $1 billion to get out of the deal?
No, I don't know. It's ridiculous. There's a lot of people that think that this was all an orchestrated stunt that would give Elon Musk a reason to sell off Tesla stocks that were coming due, and he wanted to be able to sell them without hurting the value of Tesla, and this gave him a reason to do that. I don't know.
Because people said, hey, if he dumps Tesla stock, just on a slow drip, people are going to be onto it. But if he thinks that Twitter is worth more than Tesla, then that won't be a problem for Tesla value. Then people will just think, sure, the guy traded out, the leading electric car company value for a bot-driven website. And that's
that misses you, Doug.
That's the logic that they have. That this was that somehow he needed a ruse to keep.
No, I'll tell you that the best thing on Twitter over the last few days has been Emmanuel, the emu. If you're not familiar with Emmanuel, the emu, you should be. It is
from the insurance commercials.
No, that's isn't that Doug? Isn't his name Doug?
Maybe Doug the emu.
Or is Doug the emu, or is Doug the guy with the emu? Yeah, because
I think Doug is the guy with the emu.
Oh, Doug and emu.
Because isn't it Limu, emu, and Doug?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I love that there's just
the voice of God is coming in. Answer the question. What is that?
We got a question about emus. I'm on it.
Oh, here. Dan, have you seen Emmanuel the emu?
No, I haven't.
So there is I think this might be a TikTok thing. There's a farmer who a young woman. I think she's 29. That feels like a young woman to me.
You're in a hole you're never getting out of on that one, though.
Yeah, puts puts videos out, educational videos from the farm, little content, and frequently gets interrupted by her emu named Emmanuel, and has put together some compilation videos of Emmanuel interrupting her, and they are fantastic.
Nice.
And so yeah. So, anyways, that's the kind of content we need in the world.
Yeah, that's what TikTok is for.
We need fewer Steve Bannons and more Emmanuel the emus.
All right, one last question for you, Rob. You're the only person I personally know that's chosen to be on Truth Social. Any movement over there? Any action? That's Trump's social network? Anything going on?
Yeah, I check in every once in a while. I have only posted a few times. I have tried to get kicked off, but I really want to take the experiment of like going real hard trying to get kicked off, but I don't really want to invest the time in that.
The time to do it. Yeah.
So I don't know. Truth Social, Devin Nunes, they're all annoying.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was
we didn't get to the 20
Easy
counties that are going to decide
complaint.
decide the midterms.
Next time, for sure.
Next time.
Hey,
listen.
Hey,
listen.
a couple of elections tonight.
So
Yeah,
your homework, dear listeners, dear viewers, is to read the Politico article about the 20 counties that are going to decide the midterms and be ready to discuss it next week in class.
Yes. Right. Is this
And to
and there could be a pop
summarize,
quiz.
elections are important.
There could be a pop quiz. All right, friends. Hey, we'll be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. No, 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. out on the West Coast. That's 9 in the mountains. And then Thursday night, same sort of thing, 7, 8, 6, 5. We're live here, depending on where you live. I don't know what time it is. All right, is that good for today?
Great.
Thank you both.
If I could, I'd fist bump you both right now.
See, you know what? Because that's what we do. That's what we do. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye,
Crown
everybody.
Princess.